Greetings and welcome to the Nightmare Cabin. If this is your first time watching, welcome aboard. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you as always and welcome back. This is a long overdue one. I've been talking about doing this for ages, but we've finally, it's not due to lack of preparation or listening. Just every time I went to do it, something else would come up and it got pushed back and pushed back. And I didn't want to rush it. I wanted to do it properly. So here we are. We are finally talking about the Mythological Occult Metal US Black Metal Titans, the almighty Absu. And I'm looking forward to diving into this fantastic back catalogue. Like I say, if you are a first time viewer, this is a series I do called Let's Talk About, where I take a band and go through their entire back catalogue and history. I first got made aware of Absu back in the day when Slipknot were making waves. I was a massive fan of that first album. And I remember the first time they came to the UK, they sold out the London Astoria. And a few days before that show, I was an avid listener of the Radio 1 rock show with Marianne Hobbs. And then on a Friday night, it was a metal show on XFM with Ian Camfield. And on Marianne Hobbs' show, you had Joey Jordison and Sean, I forget his surname now. Sean, they got the one with the clown mask. And they were doing an interview on the rock show, and they were choosing some of their favourite bands. And there's some, obvious choices. They, bands like Amen and stuff like that. That was the first time I actually heard Phantomus, the Mike Patton project, ex-Faith No More at the time. And yeah, and then they were said that they were fans of black metal and death metal and all the rest of it. And yeah, they played Absu's. I'll get the song for you. The Gold Talks of Yulaid, I think that is. And yeah, I was just, I had limited experience with black metal at the time, and that would have been something like Cradle of Filth or maybe a bit of Dummer Borgau if I was lucky. This was like the more raw, down in the dirt sort of. It was just a more raw version of black metal, and I remember it just stuck with me for ages. I didn't dive in straight away. It took me a few years to actually start buying their records and learn to dig a bit deeper with them. But I always remembered that song, and I always remembered the name. I was intrigued by it. And what they said in that interview at the time was Absu was the black paint that they would that black metalers would use. So Joe was saying, obviously black metalers, they had the corpse paint, the white and the black, and he said that they put black around their eyes before they put their masks on, so you can't see their face under their masks, and that black stuff that they would put on is called Absu. I've never heard that since, and there's certainly no he said that's what the band were named after, but obviously that's not the case at all. I mean, there's plenty of information about where the band got their band got their name from. But yeah, Absu, I think they're a well-respected band, but I do think they should be a hell of a lot bigger. I think their back catalogue's absolutely fantastic, and I think they should be huge. And yeah, maybe they want to keep it underground a little bit. I don't know. And like I said, they're certainly respected amongst their peers, so that's not a problem. But yeah, I think you know what I mean. Well, I think this band are actually quite underrated. But yeah, they are one of the, if not the Premier League sort of American US black metal band. I've just recently picked this book up, actually, USBM, and there's a pretty good chapter on the band in that. That came in quite handy actually in places. There's a lot of liner notes in these albums as well, and granted, a lot of these are reissues. If you take into account Nile, like it's always worth buying Nile's their albums in a CD or a vinyl format, because you will get a whole ton of information. Carl does a lot of liner notes explaining the songs, the writing process, what's going on in the lyrics, and you get a lot of that with these as well, which is quite nice. So yeah, we'll start at the beginning. Basically, Absu started with a bit of a mishmash from a band called Magus and Dolman, and the members from each of those bands sort of split and then became Absu. Absu's mainly known for Prescriptor McGovern. The guy's actual name he's the drummer and vocalist, and Russell Givens is his real name, and he's been involved with a whole host of different projects, but this is what he's mainly known for. And Absu is today mainly known for him. But it was funny enough, it wasn't until I started doing research for this video that he wasn't actually an original member. One of the first releases they put out was actually the Temples of Offal. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. It's Offal, and I'm saying Offal like a. But yeah, I don't. So they put out 2 demos, and this was their first EP. Now this is a much more for what the sound would go on to do. It's quite. This is a Dark Descent Records reissue. You see, you got the black and white sort of necro artwork there. This EP is a lot more. It's much more raw and very primitive sounding, and much more of a straightforward death metal, but very good nonetheless. Yeah, this has got the Temples of Offal and Return of the Ancients on as well. Apologies for the blurry camera. That will find its way as I'm holding CDs up to the screen and all the rest of it, so that will find its focus if you just stick with me. Yeah, so there's a lot of issues, reissues and compilations of early rehearsal material, a lot of demo material as well. You can get a bit lost in it all, and some of it's harder to come by. A lot of these reissues were limited edition, etc., and it gets a bit pricey. So I'm just showing you what I've got. But yeah, this is definitely worth picking up if you can get hold of it. But much more raw, much more basic of what the band would become. I might as well go through the lineup on this actually. So you've got the 2 main guys. You've got Shaftiel, and well, they're going by their real names at the moment on this first release, which is Mike Kelly, Gary Lindholm, Ray Helfine, and Danny Bendo. Who are those? Yeah, Michael Kelly is Shaftiel, and Raymond Helfine would go on to be called Lord Equatant Plastor, if I got that right. Yeah, got Mike Kelly on guitar and vocals, and Danny Bendo on drums on that release. But then, yeah, eventually Prescriptor McGovern would then go and join the band and go on to do their first album, which I'll show you in a sec. But yeah, that's Barathrum, and then Vitriol, spelled out Vitriol. That does stand for something. I have got it written down somewhere, but I can't find it at the moment. Yeah, I'll get this one for you. This is a reissue of by The Crypt. Fantastic artwork. Originally, the album cover was that wasn't intended to be. This was always intended to be the cover, but I think there was a balls up with the printing or something didn't quite happen with the artwork. So I think the first pressing came with that, and then it was quickly switched. This first album, released in 1993, this was a 5-piece on this band, and I believe Shaftiel was meant to do the vocals on it, but for some reason it didn't work out like that, and Prescriptor just stepped up to the mic and had a go and ended up discovering that he was a really good vocalist. Yeah, so you've got on this album Lord Equatant Plaster, which is Raymond Helfine on bass, Shaftiel, Michael Kelly on guitars, Prescriptor McGovern on drums and vocals. You've got let's bring these up because I can't read my writing. The Daviel Afron Mystica on guitars, and Black Massif on keyboards. What was quite interesting with this one as well is that the producer's wife did a bit of she did operatic. She's an opera singer and did some operatic vocals on a couple of tracks as well, just to give it that extra layer of musicality, really. And it gives things a really nice. Yeah, here we go. Right, so Vitriol. So the album is called Barathrum Vitriol, and which stands for Visita Interiora Terra Rectificanto Invis Occultum Lapidem, which I'm sure I mispronounced terribly. Yeah, Invocation, the opening track, the Involution of Thorns. Starts off with like this ritualistic drum loop with some keyboards, and it's got this spoken word passage, very atmospheric, very King Diamond. It has to be said. You will see a lot of or hear a lot of King Diamond's comparisons throughout, but it's all complimentary. Excuse me 1 second. And yeah, track 2 is where the operatic vocals come in. It's quite doom laden. There's some like doomy section backed up by keyboards on track number 5. Track number 7 as well. Again, more keys and the vocals. It's got that sort of ritual, sort of bookend. It's bookended either side really with the opening track. It's only 7 tracks on this actually. I forget how short it was, but what's interesting about this album is that it's a nice listen because the band haven't really fully become what they're going to become on this one. It's all the elements of the sounds are sort of there, but it's not fully formed yet, if you know what I mean. And epoxy camera. You've got black metal, death metal, but it's also inspired by a lot of 80s thrash metal. There's a bit of 70s sort of classic, not classic rock, but just like those classic heavy metal albums or those classic rock albums in the 70s. It has that feeling mixed in with it, and there's a bit of progressive rock in there as well. You can tell that there was a lot of listening to their dad's, Pink Floyd and Genesis LPs. I'm guessing there's it keeps mainly a death metal structure though on this first album. But yeah, it was what they would go on to call. They coined the term themselves. They weren't very happy with what was going on in the death metal and black metal circles at the time, so they coined their own mythological occult metal. But it was a mixture of black metal, death metal, thrash with a bit of progressive for good measure. But yeah, a very cool debut album. This one's particularly worth getting because the liner notes written by Prescriptor McGovern, and where he basically just says like in some ways this is his favourite album, or definitely one of his favourite albums, and an album that is dear to his heart, just because of the raw energy and the naivety and the coming of what would become Absu. I don't think you'll never get those first days back. I think there's a lot of fondness in there because it was all fresh and new. Moving on, the band would then be reduced from a 5-piece down to a 3-piece, and this sort of marks the start of the golden age for the band. At this point, they become a 3-piece. Yes, it goes from Prescriptor McGovern still on drums and vocals, Shaftiel staying there on guitar, and Acquaintant. I'm just going to call him Acquittant on bass. In fact, no, I'll say this now because in case I do forget. But at this point as well, they did go on to have a live. So they were a 3-piece recording the albums, but they did have a live bassist and vocalist who was with them for quite a while, and that's Mazadorus, whose real name is Chris Gamble, who's in Bloodstorm and Goraphobia. But yeah, from 1995 to 2002, he was actually the band's live bassist and vocalist. So he would be at the forefront of the stage, and him and Prescriptor would sort of go back and forth with the vocals. In the live show as well, the bulk of the live show, Prescriptor will be behind the drums, like with a microphone sort of there doing the vocals. But then in stages, someone does come behind the drum kit and he comes forward. He puts on a different costume and actually fronts the band for a few songs as well, so that's pretty cool. It's got to be said as well, Prescriptive McGovern, I think, is one of the best drummers to ever walk the face of the earth, and he's a pretty damn good vocalist as well. I mean, for what a lot of people probably say, Absu's sound how King Diamond looks. I've heard a lot of people that with King Diamond and Merciful Fate, they find King Diamond's vocals are a bit of a deal breaker. I love them, but a lot of people do get put off by them, and but they've always I've had people say as well that they like the way King Diamond's and Merciful Fate look, but they don't look how they sound. I suppose you got recently like the same thing with Ghost, but yeah, if you're looking at photos of Merciful Fate or photos of King Diamond and you're expecting some sort of death metal, black metal band, this is probably more up your street than the traditional metal that comes from King Diamond and Merciful Fate. But keep that in mind, because there's lots of King Diamond screams in there. King Diamond's definitely an influence on Absu, and most interestingly is King Diamond pops up on an album going forward. So we'll pick up when we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So yeah, the band are now a 3-piece, and we come on to the second full-length album, and that is the Son of Tiparaf. I think I've pronounced that right, and that was released in 1995. This fantastic album cover. Show you that now. Yeah, that's nice and focused. See if we've got any pictures of the band from the lineup at this point. You've got the inner page there. Now, this is a massive leap forward musically, and this basically is the band now just fully formed. Like they've now become the bands they were meant to be. The 3-piece. You've got the Lynette Mitchell. Sorry, she was the woman who did the operatic vocals on the first album. She returns on this one. Opening track Absu, APZU, is an 11-minute opener. They do not fuck about on this album. They go straight in the deep end, and it just has everything. It's shredding riffs, beautiful keyboards, King Diamond style screams. Bit more of a black metal with prog elements, but overall, in this 11 minutes alone, you can see the band have massively leapt forward, and as I've mentioned before, yeah, they've just fully formed now. Everything is more fully fledged. You've got a track called Quest, which is a quest for the 17th novel. Beautiful melodic interlude passages, acoustic guitars, keys, and a spoken word from section from Lynette. Our lust for Lunar Plains is a little keyboard instrumental, which is nice. But the Coming of War is a cool song, which is actually a Morbid Scream cover. Morbid Scream are bands that Absu cover a few times actually, and one of the members, a acquaintance, he has a YouTube channel with loads of like Absu stuff and all the rest of it. But he's got a load of he's got like some Morbid Scream live shows as well. So I don't know if the band are related to them in some way. I did look into it. I couldn't see any ex-members or anything like that. But twice the band cover Morbid Scream on their albums. And then you've got the finishing with the title track, The Son of Tiparaf. Yeah, it's another 7-song album, but it's still pretty long actually, if I remember correctly. It's still let's have a look. This one is 7 songs, but it's 43 minutes long. But yeah, this closing track as well is 7 minute. So yeah, you've got 11 minutes at the beginning with Absu. The second track is 8 minutes. Then you've got 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and then yeah, this one closes with 7. It has a classic evil black metal riff while maintaining like a classic sort of metal edge to it. But yeah, beautifully written, beautifully done, fantastic album. And yeah, this is the start of the golden period for Absu. Now, what comes up next is what's known as the Celtic Trilogy. I think it's selling it a bit short calling it a trilogy because it's an album, an EP, and then an album. but the first album and EP combined is the same length as the second album. So I'll explain more as we go forward. So opening up with what is now referred to as the... Bear with me 1 second, I'm just going to... The first is the third storm of Sifrol, I think that is. Funnily enough, this is Sammy from Goathor's favourite album, which raised my eyebrow, really. It sort of made me take a bit more note. But not that it was a bad album by any stretch of the imagination. It's absolutely fantastic. But the fact that it was someone's... I think it's... If I would say... You see how the band are doing here. I think this would be your favourite album in a way. When a band releases a classic, for me, I tend to verge more to the album that came before it. I like the... I know where they're going, but here they're not quite here yet, so you can spot all the signs of what's to come. I think that's really the charm with this album. But yeah, this is just a phenomenal piece of work. It's bookended by 2 longer tracks with a load of short songs in between. In particular, the final track of Celtic Fire, We Are Born. That particular song is just a fucking epic. But yeah, opening with this beautiful cinematic intro. Very Celtic, very it's acoustic, very folky. For some reason as well, that intro is skipped on the... This recently got remixed and reissued. And there's interludes on this album that aren't on that new edition. It's just straight into the meat and potatoes of the heavy parts, and I don't know why that is, but it's something worth keeping note of. If you do end up getting into Absu off the back of this video and you start buying them, when you get the remixed reissues, be careful, because yeah, it looks like some stuff is skipped. But yeah, going into that, the Shaftiel as well, he really does deserve the credit for his guitar, because as much as Prescriptive McGovern is an amazing drummer, Shaftiel is a phenomenal guitarist, and the riffs this guy writes are just out of this fucking world. He's just a monster. He again, this is why I say, like, the band should be a lot bigger. For the amount of money that Kerry King's made throughout his life, Sheffield should be a hell of a lot richer, put it that way. So, moving on. The Highland Tyrant Attack, I mean, I think that's a hit for the band. It's such a catchy song. The hooky chorus followed by the slower part, backed by keys. When it goes into that galloping riff and finishes off with the King Diamond scream at the end. Swords and Leather, I mean, it don't get any better than that when it comes to song titles. But that follows suit, as close as you'll get to a Judas Priest. Basically, yeah, imagine Judas Priest just going black metal, just going for it. The way they did on Painkiller, when they just went, right, fuck it, we're going to go full on thrash or whatever. Imagine if they embraced death and black metal. That would be what it would be. They'd do a song like Songs and Leather. There's another Morbid Scream cover on here as well. What was the song? I mean, it's worth checking out the original. I mean, I've not bought them or anything like that, but I have. I had a listen on YouTube. Yeah, Morbid Scream cover, and then you've got a song. Kind of in. Well, you haven't. Is it in 3 parts? I'm not sure. You've got Customs of Tassiomancy, which is an Act 1. Then you've got Intelligence Towards the Crown, which is a little interlude. And then you have the 8-minute epic at the end of Celtic Fire, We Are Born. And it says in brackets, in the eyes of Oldenak, which is the title of the following EP, which we'll get to. But yeah, the Customs as a cool sung part at the beginning. Intelligence. What's it called? Bear with me. Sorry. Is it Intelligence? Yes, it is Intelligence Towards the Crown. That's it. That has a it's basically the intro to of Celtic Fire, which is just the 8-minute original version, which is on the edition I've got. But yeah, this is such a well crafted song. This camera's really pissing me off now, the way it keeps on focusing. But yeah, awesomely done. So much is thrown into 8 minutes. He's got wonderful keyboards, beautiful leads and solos, a haunting melody, cinematic acoustic outro. And in 8 minutes, they just cover so much ground, and that even goes without saying. The riffs are shredding, the drums are pummeling, everything is just blistering, and it's amazing how they can play everything just at breakneck speed with such technicality, such intensity, but weave in so much melody and catchiness into the songs as well. I mean, as extreme as they can be, I think they're actually quite accessible. So yeah, that starts off the trilogy, as it is known, and then following up the very next year, in 1998, we have the Eyes of Aldanak, I think that is. I'm probably pronouncing that terribly. I've got a promo copy here that I picked up a while ago. Just a little thing, and then I recently got this reissue with a few bonus tracks. The Gold Talks of Iliad. The track I mentioned earlier is a bonus track on this, and you get a few live tracks as well, called Band Photo on the back there. The second track they actually did a video for as well. Manam something. Manamanan. Yeah, but they did a really cool video for that actually. Prescriptors in like this hooded robe with his face just painted silver, but he just looks crazy. But he pulls it off. What can you say? I wish I could pull stuff like that off. Let's see if there's any cool photos in here. I don't think we're going to pick any up. I do like that photo actually. I do think that's really cool. But this is the nice addition to have. Obviously with the bonus tracks, but the bare bones of the release is actually just 4 songs. So 17 minutes of music. Never Blow Out the Eastern Candle is a classic. I think it's a flagship Absu song. And Mana Manan, it is the best song Slayer never wrote. There, I said it. And to think this is what Absu were doing in 1998, and what Slayer were doing in 1998. Again, this band should have been fucking massive at that point. But Mana Manan is actually re-recorded for the next album. So yeah, going forward, this was in 1998, and then the next album, Tara, was released in 2001. Right, bear with me, I've got a frog in my throat. It's talking, it sneaks up on you after a while. Sued me. Right, we're getting there, folks. We're getting there. So yeah, Mana Manan. The riffs on that song are just absolutely phenomenal. Check out the video for it as well. It's worth a watch. And the guitars. Oh god, the guitars. Right, next up we reach the main event really, Tara. Lots to talk about on this album. The artist, Chris, let me get his name right because I don't want to mess this up. Is Chris Verwimp. Again, I think I've got that. Yeah, Chris Verwimp. The artist who did this amazing artwork. I'm going to show you. There's 3 paintings that he submitted. Obviously the front cover, which I just showed you. What's that? Now, Tara is actually a place in Ireland, and he actually got dirt from the hills of Tara and mixed it into the paint, which he made these beautiful. Let's get that on for you. Oh, all that's done is bloody giving it a glare. Thank you. Yeah, he actually incorporated that into the paint to make that painting. And yeah, actually did a painting. So around this time, well, 2001, a few years before, Metallica, the biggest band on earth, got an artist that just wanked and got a load of blood in a load of fucking water and did like some weird marble painting thing. And yet this band are coming up with stuff like this, you know. So that goes to show, doesn't it? Dirt from the hills of Ireland, blood and wank on the other one. So yeah, bit of a concept album. Not really like a. I did read along once, and I couldn't quite tell if it was a running narrative. But I'll show you the band photo there. How cool do they look? There's another cool photo here. Actually, I'll get into the music in a minute. But yeah, I mean, how cool does Prescriptor look on that with his face painted silver? I think it's more of a collection of sort of folk tales and poems, and you know, like you said, they use the occult, so there's spells and like I say, this is a real thick book, and there's like a little introduction to each song. There's lots of essays in there as well, and little quotes from different writers and whatnot. And there's even a little glossary at the back. So it tells you what Absu means, in case you're ever worried, ever wondered. Yeah, it's just worth. Again, it's worth picking up the physical copy. Yes, and this is also the one where King Diamond does a secret special guest appearance on this album. So King Diamond was recording House of God at the time. Was it House of God? Yeah, I think it was House of God. Excuse me. And it overrun when they were mixing it. And so that ate into Absu's time. And in order to make up for it and to apologise, King Diamond says, I'll do backing vocals on the album free of charge. But he, because of, basically where he's tied in with his record label, he wasn't be able to use his name, so they put him under a persona. And that name that they use is actually the name of an ex-member. So he's on it, but uncredited. And the keyboard used on this album is actually the analog synthesizer, which is used on Blondie's Heart of Glass. Yeah, there you go. It begins and closes with bagpipes. Again, it's bookended. The album is also in two halves. So if you see the track list there, you've got Phase 1 and Phase 2. Split in half by a nice little synthesizer piece. Which is a song I can't pronounce. But yeah, when you get that keyboard bit in the middle, that is the interlude between the two halves. Right, this is the peak of the band. This is the band's masterpiece. I don't think anyone would really argue with that. I think everything... Well, I'll cover that at the end. What I normally sum up at the end, what I think of where everything should go. I'll talk about that later. A Shield with an Iron Face, King Diamond Scream, Frantic Chorus. O Victorious is the what song's that? O Victorious. I don't know why I wrote that down, but yeah, Frantic Chorus. Oh dang, Victorious. Yeah, that's the chorus I was writing down there. But yeah, cool keyboards thrown in as well. Frantic chorus. Really cool vocal lines. Really rapidly thrown out. Tight riffs. The riffs are like razors. I mean, this is... Again, I was saying that back on the last two releases how good Shaftiel was at writing riffs, but oh my god, he's fantastic on this. Manan. Again, that was re-recorded for this album. I'll let you decide which version you prefer. From Ancient Times, awesome drum intro. The drums sound like they're hidden behind a wall of noise, and then it's just bang, just kicks in once that sort of barrier drops. Bit like, is it Ghosts of War by Slayer? You know, and then just bam, and just kicks in. The awesome effect. It's frantic yet kind of sort of subtly melodic shredding on that one. Bron, is that a song? Of course it's got to be a song because I wrote it down. Yeah, Bron for the Waves. Beautiful acoustic folk sort of interlude, and then we get out to the end. The final main song is Stone of Destiny. Fuck, what a good song. Amazing. Again, King Diamond has to have done the vocals on this. I can't see. It just holds that high note. It goes, I can't. I'm not even going to attempt to do it. But it just go, but high as fuck like King Diamond does. And that's the chorus with that riff going on. Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. Just pure metal bliss on that track. I love the piano on there as well. The vocals at time. I mean, yeah, there's that, and he does that go, you know, as much as it sounds like King Diamond, sounds like Dio's singing at times. It's crazy. But yeah, this is definitely, it's got to be the peak of the bands. This album is an absolute masterpiece. If you only get one album by Absu, this is the one to get. They are going down in history for this album. This is one of the best metal albums ever recorded. And but everything is gold before it. Don't get me wrong, but it's all leading up to this. And yeah, that's the band in their prime. Right, so a few things to make note of. In 1995 and in 1997, Prescriptor McGovern did 2 solo albums. And all this time, we're talking about Absu. All of the members of Absu are actually in another band called, if you bear with me 1 minute, I'll quickly find the name. Iquamanthon. I think I've pronounced that right. Which is basically an ambient project, and I'll be honest, I'm not that much of a fan of it. If it floats your boat, fair enough, but I like music that goes somewhere. I haven't really got time to sit around for 11 minutes listening to it. You know, just weird. To me, it just sounds, a lot of it sounds like it's fucking made up on the spot. That pretty much goes for Prescriptor's solo albums as well. Nothing but love for the guy. He's been involved in a lot of projects, but those solo albums I thought were a bit... didn't float my boat, and Equipmanthon isn't really for me either. But what's interesting about them is that the other main guy, I'm gonna have to start talking in people's real names here because it's getting confusing. But what's the guy's name? Was it Acquaintant or something like that? He carried on with the project afterwards, but for a while, Prescriptor McGovern was in it as well. Equitant, that's it. Yeah, they did a couple of albums. So basically, at this point, Absu more or less split up. They went on a hiatus. I think they covered a lot of grounds in those. What would go on those 4 albums? They sort of reached a peak with Tara. We did get this compilation. This bookends this period of the band quite nicely, actually. So this is a collection of demos and rarities, B-sides, and odds and sods. The Temples of Othol is on here as well. So you don't have to get that edition that I got. You got 2 new songs on there. You got some live tracks. The main, the Gold Talks of Ulad, which I mentioned earlier, the first song I ever heard from, although it is a bonus track on that EP, it is on here as well. You get an awesome, Death Crush, cover of Death Crush by Mayhem. You get a fantastic cover of Transylvania by Iron Maiden. You get a cover of Bestial Invasion by Destruction. Swing of the Axe by Possessed. And some live stuff, like I say, odds and sods and all the rest of it. And like I said, this book, again, this is from 1991 to 2001. And like I say, yeah, it cuts off that period quite nicely. And yeah, the band more or less go on a hiatus at this point. Prescriptor McGovern had an accident where he shattered his wrist and had to rehabilitate, had to learn to play drums again. He ended up going to join Melakesh, awesome band. He drummed on a couple of their albums, particularly the Sphinx album. And in 2003, Shaftiel quit the band. McGovern does 2 Iqua Manthorn albums, the band I mentioned earlier, with Iquitant, and also did a band called Star Chaser Network, which was a electronic dance project, which was quite interesting to say the least. I think it's quite hard to get hold of, but it's worth tracking down on YouTube and having a listen. It's worth a listen, I'll say that. Right, so after that, Prescriptor decides to... He's the only original member at this point, even though he wasn't even an original member to begin with. But he put a new lineup together and came up with a self-titled Absu in 2011. Now, the Shaftiel actually wrote 2 songs on this album, and Iquitant actually wrote 1 song as well. Melakesh, from the band Melakesh, who Prescriptor was in, actually wrote lyrics for a couple of tracks. Mayhem's Blasphemer did solo on 2 tracks. Now, a guy called Vassator Terrarum, I think his name, Michael Rowe, joined the band. He wrote 4 songs towards this album, but ended up leaving and not actually playing on it, but he did contribute 4 songs. And then the other 2 members that do play on the album are Eferis on guitar and bass. And I'm going to have to look these people up because I'm going to have to tell you their real names because I can't go with the actual... Right, you've got, Eferis, I think it is. That's Shandy McKay on guitars and bass. And you've got also Zoe Kizaz. Fucking hell. Also on vocals and keyboards and bass. So, still a 3-piece. And obviously Prescriptor back on vocals and back on drums. I think it's a really cool album, actually. It's over 50 minutes. Quite a bit going on. Quite a straightforward album in a lot of ways. There's a lot of like flares and a lot of, lots of elements thrown in, but still generally it's very blast beaty, very freshy, very shreddy, very, it's everything you want. The opening track has that hook. It's just like and then it's nice and pummeling and thrashy and extreme as you like, but then it just has this, but it just comes back to that, and it's just a nice little touch. It just breaks the song up, but they kind of throw everything at you on that opening track. The opening track is called, actually, Between the Absu of Iridu and Irek. But that's a fantastic song, the opening track on that album, actually. Nightfire is a pummeling black thrash monster. It's just the epitome of chaos, that track. Amy as a marching sort of tempo rhythm. Cool riffs, it's very dark. Cool keyboards on this song. Has a Nocturnus vibe, actually, Amy. Reminded me a bit of Nocturnus. I guess you could say Nightfire canonization. Nightfire canonization. I'm so used to it being some weird word. When I actually get a normal word, I have to space it out. But yeah, you just that chaotic feeling that Nocturnus had, where like one wrong note would just felt like the whole thing was going to derail any second. Excuse me. But yeah, overall it's a straightforward album, really, as far as Absu albums do go. There's a lot of little, touches and flair, but on the whole, it pretty much keeps its head down and gets on with the task at hand. 13 Globes. The lead on that is just, fucking phenomenal. When it's actually played by Prescriptor, he actually does the solo on that track. Track 6 is a really long title. Here we go. Of the dead who never rest in their tombs are the attendants of familiar spirits, including A. Diversified signs inscribed. B. Our Earth of Black. C. Vor. That's the song title. 7 minutes. That's the longest on the song. It's a song in 2 parts. It has orchestral vocals in the chorus and medieval sort of acoustic little vibe on there as well. Some keys at the end that sort of go crazy. The keyboards actually sounds a little bit like horns. It makes me wonder if they could afford to hire like a horn section, would it be played with horns? Maybe one day if they did it live with an orchestra or something like that, would they get a load of horn players to do that thing? But it has this sort of psychedelic jazzy vibe to it as well. It's pretty cool. Magic Square has a wonderful opening. It's so dark and heavy, and again the riffs. This one thing that needs to be said actually, where although Shaftiel writes 2 songs and Equitant is writes 1 song, it is still a new lineup, and you've got other writers on here, but it still feels like Absu. But it does feel new. It does feel fresh. It feels very different. But I do think you're at the point where if Prescriptor's screaming and drumming on it, it just becomes Absu. But you can tell the difference between the players, definitely. In the name of... what's the song? In the name of... Oh, yeah. I ain't even bothering pronouncing that. But when you look at the track listing, in the name of... And then, you try saying it. But yeah, blistering solo on that. Take These of the Void, is that? Yeah, Those of the Void will re-enter. What a title that is. Blasting as usual, but as a beautiful, peaceful little break in the middle of it. Yeah, there's this wonderful little part where I guarantee you it'll pop into your head one day and it'll torture you wherever I heard that music from, and you'll never remember that it's actually in the middle of an Absu album, but it kicks back in big time at the end. And then, Skepta's Command as well. Phenomenal song. Really, really good. I mean, some people, you get like a certain point of a band where it's like that's their classic material, and no matter how good the material that follows, it just never. But no, I think a lot of this stuff does match up. It does stand up to the classic material. Like I said, there's a 10-year gap, and considering this was the first album in 10 years. With one original member sort of holding it all together, holding the fort, I think this is a great achievement. This is a really good album. Say this is the underrated one. And then in 2000 and... Did I get the year right on that? Yeah, 2011. No, 2009. I do apologise. Absu came out in 2009. Although Tara did come out in 2001, so an 8-year gap. I mean, it's close to 10 years, I guess. But yeah, then in 2011, you have another subtitled album called Absu. Abzu. A-P-Z-U. No, A-B-Z-U. Abzu. Now, I wasn't completely wrong because A-P-Z-U is the album that comes next. So the the plan was to do 3 self-titled albums. So Absu would be spelt slightly different every time. And the next one, well, we'll come to that in a minute. So, yep, in 2011, so that's the outer artwork, sort of like a drawn sketch, and then there's the actual artwork on the inside. This one again comes with some liner notes before the songs. There's the lineup on this particular album. Yet again, we got another new lineup, which I'll cover in a sec. So Prescriptor again, drums and vocals. Then you've got Ezezu, whose name is Paul Williamson, on bass and vocals, and Viz Crom is Melissa Moore on guitar. And all the leads were performed by Mayhem's. Well, he's not in Mayhem anymore, but he was in Mayhem at the time. Blasphemer, who's also in what's he been in since? He's in that band with David Vincent now, isn't he? I can't remember what they're called. But yeah, Ara Noir is one band he's in. Twilight of the Gods with Alan Averill from Primordial. That was a good album. Fire on the Mountain. Litmus. Something Wicked Marches On. That was the band with David Vincent and the drummer from Cryptopsy. He's also worked with Nada Sadik as well. Mind you, I think everyone's worked with him at some point. So this one is a much more... Well, with the last album, that was like over 50 minutes long, and this album's literally 35 minutes. It's 6 songs. With that being said, though, the closing song, A Song for Ear, is nearly 15 minutes long. But apart from that, it's pretty much balls to the wall, blast beats and shredding. It's a pretty cool album, actually. Nice and thrashy at the beginning with the opening track, Earth Ripper. Kind of progressive with some odd time signatures. A lot of sudden switches in gear, I did notice. But let's hold that up one more time to get this focus on. But yeah, it's a nice, awesome King Diamond scream in there as well. I don't think you'd feel a bit shortchanged if you didn't get that. Circles of the Oath, is that what the song's called? Yeah, Circles of the Oath. Nice chaotic with some nice acoustics at the end. Braxas Connexus. Some of these song titles. Starts off quite typical black metal, but sort of melodic passages in the chorus. And then the last track, Song for it goes in a bunch of stages and a little bit too clever for its own good, if I'm honest. Not a bad album by any stretch of the imagination, but it's pretty standard at this point. A worthy addition to the collection, a nice little addition to the catalogue. I'll put it down to that, really. After that, I don't know what happened, really. There was a bit of airing dirty laundry in public, shall we say, between Melissa and Prescriptor. Although, in all fairness, it was a bit more one way. Prescriptor didn't seem to respond to any of it, but some text messages and whatnot were publicly shared. And then after that, it all got a bit cryptic. I mean, if you ever watch any interviews with Prescriptor McGovern as well, he is a very cryptic guy. And he put out a statement basically saying that he was ending the band. But then, in fact, let's have a quick read of the book. I think I've got this in here. If I can quickly spot it. Yeah, so he said that the album is 89.3% completed, which I thought was quite funny. And then, then he put on Facebook, I remember reading this at the time, after meagre deliberation and zero remorse, I've decided to dissolve Absu. After the 3 decades of existence, collectively and universally speaking, this decision is finite, due to insoluble circumstances, which has led to this ultimate result. No amount of time, exertion, or formula or fashion can alter my verdict. And then, not too long afterwards, well, he's basically... So Absu is now dead, so to speak. But Prescriptor McGovern's Absu, which is spelled APSU, is just signed to Agonia Records, which is a fantastic record label, it must be said, home to Beheaded, Demonical, Pestilence, amongst other bands. So I guess I don't quite get what's gone on, so I can only speculate, but I don't get why. You normally get someone leave a band and go, oh, it's such and such is, and then the band, you know, KK's Priest, or, you know, and the Venom Inc. and all the rest of it. So I don't know if McGovern's fallout, I don't see how that has anything to do with it, because Viz Crom was only a member on that last album. I can't see how someone who contributed to one album can cause someone to, you know, completely dissolve a band and get rid of the name. So something else must have gone on, I don't know. But yeah, that was, as it stands, this is the last Absu album, and now Prescriptor McGovern is doing his own version of Absu under a new record deal. But I think we're all going to pretty much recognise it as Absu anyway. And if he ever tours, well, when the album does come out, I'm sure on that tour he's going to be doing Absu songs. So it's pretty much just going to become Prescriptor McGovern's Absu anyway. And he has been the only original member in the last decade or so, and even though he wasn't on that original EP. So it all gets a bit confusing. But yeah, we'll see going forward. But I'm sure all involved will come up with good music regardless, because everyone is amazingly talented. I would like to see Shaftial make a return into music though, definitely. So yeah. Right, folks, we made it to the end. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. I'm going to quickly go through the... right, so the debut is not quite fully formed band, but definitely worth a listen. Probably not the best one to start with. Basically, the golden period is these 4 albums, with Tara being the masterpiece. I would probably say start with Tara. Just go straight in the deep end and get that. If you like that, work your way backwards and get these 3. Then get that. Then move forward and get these 2. Get that one before that one though. This is good, but this is for fans only. You wouldn't... I can't see that album winning new fans over. This is for long-time fans over. But this is the underrated gem. Now, if you are a fan of Absu and you may have only got into the original stuff and didn't get bothered with the later albums, you're missing out on that one. That's worth checking out. So that's the underrated one. That is for completists only. Which one is it? That's the masterpiece. Oh, shit. Yep, Tara is the masterpiece. But everything before Tara is solid gold, but it is all building up to the peak that is Tara. And yeah, all of this is worth a go. Definitely worth a listen. And yeah, and the debut is an interesting listen as well, and worth investigating. And yeah, and if you're really into it, check out the gnarly early stuff as well. So I'm throwing CDs all over the place now. It's all getting a bit chaotic. And this isn't, you know, I haven't got hardly anything really in the big scheme of things. There's loads of compilations. There was a 2-disc compilation that came out recently. I I would have got it, but I couldn't be bothered to pay the shipping. And I did listen to a few tracks, and it just sounded like it was recorded in a kitchen. I just thought, oh, what's the point? And yeah, and that's mainly from this era of the band as well, which is fine. I mean, I do like this, but I don't need 2 discs worth of rehearsal from them. You know what I mean? There's a couple of double disc demo compilations, and yeah, it gets a bit much after a while. I think I've covered the bulk of it. Everything that's worth getting, I've got basically. So I have flirted with the idea of getting this on vinyl, but it's just shipping is the main one. It's the shipping costs more than the album. Basically, it's all getting a bit ridiculous. And not only that, with everything that's going on at the moment, the amount of time you have to wait, it makes you wonder if it's worth it as well. But yeah, anyway, I'm so glad I finally got this done. Thank you ever so much for watching. Check out Absu. We've got Maiden Cast coming up as well. If you are new to the channel, I do a weekly show where we're going through all the Iron Maiden albums, bit like what I've done now, but an album at a time, an episode at a time, which we're coming to the end of. We've got to do Blaze Bayley, War Within Me, and then we've got the new album coming out, which is exciting. I'll be doing a Let's Talk About coming up. I'm not going to tell you what band yet though, because I've not decided. I've got a couple of pokers in the fire, so to speak. I've got one. Well, I've got a special guest. I need to track him down though. But I think I might do something a little less extreme next time. I might do a more of a not mainstream, more of a traditional heavy metal band, rather than I've been doing a lot of death metal and whatnot lately. So I'll see how I feel. But as always, thank you for watching. You're brilliant, and yeah, all the best. And I'll see you all soon. Check out Absu, and yeah, take care of yourselves. Lift weights, eat eggs, drink rum, smoke cigars, read the classics, and above all else, listen to metal. Take care, folks.